Hello, this is Sharon Rhodes, and I'm so happy that you've joined me. I want to just share with you some thoughts today about our emotions and our five senses. So, what are emotions? The root of the word emotion comes from a French term that means to stir up. It really means energy in motion. We like to say the E is for energy, and it's emotions are energy in motion, emotion. So, everything is a form of energy. Energy just simply cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. We learned that from Albert Einstein. Now, there are good emotions and bad emotions, or maybe are they just emotions? Because think about this. Anger prompts us to make needed changes to get a better job. So anger, you might say, is a negative emotion, but if it prompts us to get a better job or to stop, leave an abusive relationship, then it directs us to a better place. So it is a positive thing then. Happiness. Now, research shows that a person who is really, really happy and always happy, just may not be completely in touch with reality. They may be hiding some of their emotions, denying some of their emotions. So this disengagement from reality, as a person experiences intense levels of happiness, we might think it's a good thing, but it actually could lead to risky behaviors and dysfunction in certain areas of life. So we need to understand that there's no absolutes when we're talking about emotions, all right? The key is what we do with those emotions, because like I said, they can't be destroyed. We can't just get rid of them. They only change form. And so what we do with them, how we handle them, how we keep them in check, how we change their form, if they're negative, into something positive, that's what's important. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's talk about a little bit about our emotions and our physical body. Because like I said, emotions are energy and they cannot be destroyed. Energy has frequency and it can be measured. So, for example, in traditional Chinese medicine, we learn that anger, the energy of the emotion anger, tends to be stored in the liver. The energy of the emotion of fear tends to be stored in the kidneys. The energy of the emotion of grief tends to be stored in the lungs, and energy from the emotion of worry tends to be stored in the spleen. Now, we're talking about frequencies. These are measurable scientific values that we can assign to energy, to emotions, and even the cells of the body and the body systems can be measured in frequency. The healthy human brain measures at about 72 to 90 megahertz. The total human body, the adult body, healthy body, is about 62 to 68 megahertz. Now, foods have frequencies. Canned foods have 0 frequencies. Now, I'm not saying nutrition. I'm talking about measurable frequency, energy. Fresh produce has about 15 megahertz. Dried herbs has 12 to 22 megahertz. Fresh herbs, 20 to 27. As you can see, fresh food is healthy for us because it had, not only does it have nutritional value, but it also has frequency, vibrational frequency. And essential oils, I love to use essential oils, have between 52 megahertz and some of them are over 300 megahertz. Now, interestingly, those that have the right equipment to measure these things have measured that the body, when it has a common cold, the frequency tends to drop to about 58 megahertz. Remember, a healthy human adult body is 62 to 68 megahertz. So when we have a common cold, generally our body frequency drops to 58 megahertz. When we have the flu, 57 megahertz. A candida situation, 55 megahertz. If we have Epstein-Barr, that drops the body frequency to about 52 megahertz, cancer 42 megahertz, and death begins at 24 megahertz. If you've ever been in the room with a person who is passing away, you can, if you pay attention, you can actually feel the lower frequency. So I hope you're beginning to see that, for example, when we experience the emotion of extreme grief, let's just use that as an example, and we fail to address it properly and release it, the energy of that emotion of grief can be stored in the lungs because the lungs have a similar frequency, and the body is always seeking to maintain homeostasis. That's that balance in all things. And so when it has something, it matches it to whatever the body believes it's supposed to be matched with. That's just how the body is created to operate. I personally experienced this long before I understood this, when I lost someone very near and dear to me, and I didn't give myself the time to grieve. I didn't know how to grieve. And I developed asthma. I was diagnosed with asthma, and I was grieving terribly, but I wasn't allowing that emotion to be released. I was holding it in. And so the energy of that emotion, grief, was stored in my lungs, and it reduced the frequency of my lungs and caused me to have some breathing difficulties. Okay. So that's how sometimes dis-ease forms in the body. And when we don't know how to release the energy of an emotion, or we aren't able to for whatever reason, we are very likely to experience things like breathing difficulty, digestive issues, all kinds of physical ailments. Okay. Western medicine treats the symptoms, yet we can address the root cause when we understand how the body works, particularly when we're talking about emotions. Okay, so let's talk about the emotions. We know we have 5 emotions. Here, the Creator, that's how He made us. We have sight, we have hearing, we have touch, and we have taste. And now here's something brilliant. We also have the sense of smell. All right. The sense of taste, touch, sight, and hearing all get processed through the frontal part of the brain, which is called the reasoning cortex. That means we can think about one of those 4 senses, and then instantaneously almost we decide how to respond. For example, if we touch a hot stove, instantaneously through the frontal cortex, our body tells us to remove our fingers from that hot stove. Now, the sense of smell is different. It bypasses that reasoning cortex and goes straight to the amygdala, or the limbic part of the brain that's right here. This is the amygdala, the limbic part of the brain. Here's the frontal cortex. And the sight, touch, hearing, and taste are all processed through this area of the brain first. The sense of smell gets processed through the amygdala first, all right? And then the frontal cortex comes into play. But first and foremost, it goes through the amygdala, and the amygdala is, guess what? Known as the seat of emotions, okay? So I guess the Creator just knew that we needed to have one sense that would be processed by the brain differently. We needed to have a sense that we could not physically and mentally control. And so that sense is the sense of smell. Think about it. Baked bread, coffee, a certain cologne or perfume, even moldy leaves can trigger the release of memories that we didn't even realize we held. If we're holding that energy of those emotions in the cellular parts of our body, and then we smell something that triggers, that was in the room when we initially felt that emotion, and it triggers the amygdala can release that emotion. And it can be a beautiful thing. Now, here's a really cool fact, if you will. Many smells today, I might even say most, are synthetic. And while we may have come to accept them as being nice and something we're used to, it's only when we smell a pure, natural aroma that we can truly begin to recalibrate our olfactory senses or our sense of smell. Just like we recalibrate our taste buds when we switch from real sugary, artificially flavored foods to fresh fruits and veggies. In the beginning, they may not taste normal to us, but as we recalibrate our sense of taste, then we come to appreciate the deliciousness of fresh foods, fruits and vegetables. The same thing happens with our sense of smell. Now, let's bring this home, will you? You just stick with me for a few more minutes and we'll bring it home. Each of our senses affects our emotional well-being. They can calm us or they can agitate us. Let's talk about this a minute. The sense of taste, think about it. If we just put a teeny tiny piece of chocolate on our tongue, if that's our favorite food, or if we like chips, salty chips, whatever our favorite food is, that is what we call our comfort food, that sense of taste can help soothe our distress. And if we just use a little teeny bit, it can give us the time and the energy to face and release whatever emotion is driving us to that sense of taste. On the other hand, if we eat the whole bag of chocolates, then we're going to have more negative emotions because we know that's not good for us. The sense of touch, giving or receiving just a tender caress, a hug, just a shoulder rub or a foot rub from someone that you love can calm us and remind us that we can face the emotions that are upsetting us and address them in a way that shows love, including self-love. Sight. We've all probably heard somebody say, "You're a sight for sore eyes." My grandmother used to say that to me when I'd walk through the door. That means something is a welcome sight. I never understood that as a child, though. Looking at things that we find that are calming, soothing, or invoke pleasant memories can help us deal with sometimes stormy emotions. Hearing is our other sense that can help us emotionally. Every sound that we hear has a frequency, and those frequencies can uplift us, disturb us, anger us, and calm us. Research shows that music therapy can lower blood pressure and reduce heart rate. Music has a psychoacoustic effect on our emotions because it changes the activity in the frontal cortex of the brain. Again, there's that front part of the brain that our emotions are processed through. Now let's talk about the sense of smell. Remember when I said the sense of smell bypasses the frontal cortex and goes directly to the limbic or the amygdala part of the brain, deep inside the brain? That has a huge impact on how we process our emotions. You see, even though it might be lightning fast, the other four senses get processed through that reasoning cortex. That means we can think about our reactions and we have some control over them. And those thoughts might change how we react to those senses. For example, if we're really, really, really angry at somebody and that person tries to give us a hug, we can actually recoil, and that hug, which would be a positive thing, can drive us into even deeper anger or larger anger. So when we smell something, though, we cannot predetermine how the brain will process that sense. It's just the way we're born. It's the way we're created. It's the way we're wired. I'll give you a personal story. I used to spend a lot of time at my grandparents' house on the weekends, and my grandfather, he was a really unique guy. And years after he passed away, as an adult, the first time I smelled clary sage, the essential oil of clary sage, I immediately was transported back and I thought about my grandfather. I felt like my grandfather was with me. I don't know why. I didn't know why then. And this day, I don't know why. But I felt such a strong connection to him. And it was a beautiful feeling. And I just felt like I remembered all the times that we shared together. And it made me feel really warm and loved and calm. Interestingly, shortly after that, I handed a bottle of Clary Sage essential oil to my mother and to my sister. And I said, smell this and tell me who it reminds you of. They smelled it and they said, it doesn't remind me of anybody, because they didn't have the memory of whatever it was that smelled like Clary Sage. My grandfather was a hillbilly from West Virginia, and he might have used Clary Sage. And so they didn't have that memory of the smell, the aroma of Clary Sage. So that aroma didn't bring back any memories for them, but it sure did for me. And sometimes to this day, when I open a bottle of Clary Sage, I think of my grandfather. You can experience similar things too, if you haven't already done so. Because when we store emotions, even when we stuff them way down deep inside, and we have convinced ourselves that we forgave and we forgot, because those emotions are energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. It simply changes form. A whiff of something can release stored energy of emotions so that we can deal with it and let it go. Just like water runs off us in the shower down the drain, those emotions that no longer serve us can just go, we could just let them go. Maybe somebody said something sometime hurtful to you when you were a child and you didn't have the ability to process that hurt. It's still somewhere in your body. That energy of that hurt is still somewhere in your body. It could be anger that's stored in your liver, and you may be experiencing less than optimal liver function and not even be aware of it. It could be worry, fear, disappointment, or a feeling of abandonment or unworthiness. Whatever it is, it's still there if you didn't release it or change it into something that would serve your benefit. That, my friend, is why I love essential oils. It's one of the key reasons I use them and teach about them, because they support our emotional health so beautifully. Which essential oils, you may ask? Well, because of essential oils have frequency, because they're from the plants, just like the cells of our bodies have frequency, just like the emotions have frequency. It's difficult to say a specific oil. And I've heard people that know a lot more about oils than I do say, use whatever you've got and just smell it and see what happens. But I will tell you that there are certain blends that are specifically formulated to help us release emotions. Having said that, though, any aroma, including essential oils, and because they are purely natural, plant-based, especially when you use the right oils, and you need to know that quality and purity matter. That's why I only recommend Young Living oils, by the way. But when you use those oils, any oil can reach the cells in your amygdala and help you release emotions that no longer serve you. Now, we do have some blends that are specifically formulated to help with those emotional, to help reach the amygdala and speak to the amygdala, so to speak. Oil blends like forgiveness, they're called, they're named in such a way to let us know how they may serve us. Forgiveness, hope, release, inner child, joy, believe. I love and use every single one of them. Whatever emotion you might be experiencing, it's important to remember a couple of things. Number one, as hard as it may be, there are others who have experienced that same emotion. So you can reach out and connect with others. You are not alone, okay? That's really important to remember. And the second thing is also really important to remember. If you are severely depressed or have thoughts of hurting yourself or feel like you are beyond hope, please, please seek medical professional attention immediately. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to diagnose, treat, or prescribe. I'm here to educate you about how your body works. And I'm here to encourage you and to say to you that we love you and you are worthy to live a full, happy, enlightened life. Now, your emotions are a very important part of who you are created to be. You will walk into your best self. You will serve your highest purpose when you are able to release those emotions that no longer serve you. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, the link to contact me is in the comments of this video, and I will see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Remember to take time for you because it's important. You deserve it.